A conversation with you. What happened to the Black family? This series began with a promise. When we wrapped up the Conversation with Charlie series, we said there was more to unpack, that there was another layer to the story we couldn't fit into just one conversation. So we made a promise to come back and take an honest look at the question that kept resurfacing. What really happened to the Black family? Not in sound bites, not in headlines, just truth, laid out clearly, in order, with no side to defend. Because when we started pulling the thread during our deep dive into DEI, we realized that much of what's debated today, about diversity, inclusion, representation, and responsibility, all trace back to a time long before those words became slogans. This is not about proving anyone right or wrong. It's about understanding what actually changed, and how we all inherited the story that followed. A Conversation with You continues in Part 1. Find a way to stick around. This is Thinking Blind. See you soon. Part 1. Thug Life. The era they said broke us. They say thug life marked the fall of the Black family. That somewhere between the lyrics, the violence, and the headlines, everything changed. So we decided to take an honest look. The phrase rose in the early 90s, just after the crack era, and right before the 1994 crime bill. But the numbers tell a different story. Since 1993, violent crime among Black Americans has dropped by more than half. Poverty fell from above 30% to under 18%. Graduation rates climbed past 90%, and college enrollment more than doubled. SNAP and welfare use stayed flat or declined, even as our population has grown significantly. Single-parent households remain high, but their rate of increase has also slowed by nearly half compared to the 70s and 80s. Even marriage rates told a surprising story. While still in long-term decline, that decline slowed significantly during the thug life era, compared to earlier generations often called more family-oriented. So the era remembered for collapse, the era we're still living right now, has also been one of quiet recovery. So if crime has been falling, education has been rising, and poverty has been easing, then maybe we started the story too late. Because how can thug life be sufficient enough to explain our collapse, if it doesn't explain the cause? So to see what really cracked the foundation, we'll have to go back, before the 90s, and follow the truth from where the change began. Find a way to stick around for Part 2. This is Thinking Blind. See you soon. Part 2. Deindustrialization, an American experience. To understand how we got here, we went back to the era most people call the turning point for the Black family. The time they say things were better. But to see what really happened, we had to start earlier, during the Great Migration. Millions of Black families moved north and Midwest chasing steady factory work, good wages, and a chance to build something solid. For a while, that promise held. Then the factories closed. Jobs moved overseas, machines replaced people, and the security that pulled families north began to fade. By the late 70s, unemployment among Black men had doubled. Fewer paychecks meant fewer marriages. Two-parent homes fell from roughly 60% in 1960 toward 40% by 1980. Poverty climbed alongside single-parent households, and nearly a third of Black Americans in some cities were living below the line. Families tried to fill the gap. Welfare expanded, education rose, but a diploma no longer promised work. Crime followed lost income, not a cultural collapse. And a tightening prison system caught more people in its reach. So when the 80s arrived, the ground was already cracked. What looked like better before was already sliding. Work, family, and opportunity straining under jobs that never came back. Sounds familiar, huh? This was the quiet breaking, the part of the story rarely told, because it doesn't fit anyone's headline. And to see what came next, we'll have to stay right here for a moment and listen to what the late 70s and early 80s were trying to say. Find a way to stick around for Part 3. This is Thinking Blind. See you soon. Part 3. The Quiet Breaking. By the mid-1970s, the changes from a decade earlier were showing their weight. Factory closings swept the Midwest and Northeast, and by the early 80s, over a third of the manufacturing jobs once held by Black workers were gone. Unemployment for Black men hovered near 15%, twice the national average. In 1960, about 60% of Black adults were married. By 1970, that number had barely changed. But even while marriage looked steady, cracks had already formed. single-parent homes rising as economic strain pulled families apart faster than paperwork could catch up. By 1980, marriage had slipped into the upper 40s, and two-parent households fell toward 40%, the quiet breaking now visible inside the home. Poverty stayed near 30% for Black families, even as national poverty declined. Education climbed, high school completion passed 60% for the first time, showing progress and instability moving side by side. Crime rose through 1980, but arrests shifted from violence to drugs, the first turn toward what would soon be called the war on drugs. And from that struggle, a new voice emerged. In burned-out lots and basements of New York, young people mixed rhythm, poetry, and movement, birthing hip-hop, a sound born from the silence of work that never came back. It was a complicated snapshot, progress, decline, and new pressures quietly forming. Next time, we'll step into the mid-80s, when those pressures meet policy head-on and reshape everything once again. This is Thinking Blind. See you soon. Part 4. War at the Bottom. By the mid-80s, the crisis that began with closing factories and lost work had taken new shape. Crack cocaine spread through major cities by 85, and arrests climbed in ways the numbers had never shown before. By 1995, people imprisoned for drug offenses rose from about 40,000 to over 400,000. But the war was fought at the bottom. The new drug laws, the Anti-Drug Abuse Acts of 1986 and 1988, later joined by the 1994 Crime Bill, were built around quantity of results, not quality of policing, because funding and promotions followed arrest totals, not crack disappearance. The system was built to reward more cases, faster convictions, longer terms. 5 grams of crack meant 5 years in prison, while 50 grams only meant 10. From a legal view, being a user or small dealer was riskier than being a kingpin. By the early 90s, violent crime leveled off, but arrests kept rising. Nonviolent cases outnumbered violent ones for the first time. In the home, marriage rates slipped into the low 30s. Single-parent homes rose, but now more slowly than before. Still, education kept climbing, high school completion passed 70%, and college attendance edged upward. By 95, national crime was trending down, yet incarceration still climbed to over 1 million Black Americans under correctional supervision. The war had done what it was built to do, or at least that's what we thought. This beast of a war, regardless of us being its first target, isn't just our experience anymore. We're not making light of systemic racism, we're preparing you for what came next. Stick around for Part 5. This is Thinking Blind. See you soon. Part 5. Thugs and Predators. By the mid-90s, the thug life era, policies were well in motion, and momentum was already its own machine. Violent crime drops nearly 40% between 1993 and 2005. Yet the incarceration rate keeps climbing, peaking around 2008. The biggest driver isn't violence anymore, it's drug possession, but not even crack. By the late 90s, marijuana arrests alone double, even as overall drug use rates flatten. Inside Black America, family numbers steady but don't reverse. Marriage rates hold in the low 30s, single-parent homes rise only a few points, and high school graduation passes 80%. Black college enrollment reaches a record 1.9 million students by 2009. The picture isn't further collapse, it's contradiction. Meanwhile, the national drug crisis changes color. Meth and prescription opioids surge in white, rural regions that once watched the crack crisis from afar. The same sentencing laws written for crack now fill new prisons in new towns. The war on drugs didn't stop at the Black family, it changed addresses. But through it all, public images of Black crime remain frozen in the 90s. News footage doesn't show the quiet statistical reversal already happening. By 2005, both Black violent crime rates and Black poverty rates fall to their lowest levels in 2 decades. When the narrative stays still but the numbers move on, it leaves a question hanging. If the story stopped changing, who kept repeating it? That's what we look at next, when politics and perception meet the data. Find a way to stick around for Part 6. This is Thinking Blind. See you soon. Part 6. American Gangsters. The super predator generation, the mid-2000s until now, grew up. And the children once described as America's future threat became its cultural heartbeat. Hip-hop, born in the late 70s, moved from block parties to boardrooms, from niche to national. What had been labeled thug culture is now American culture. The fashion, the slang, the rhythm are no longer confined to race. Walk through any high school, scroll any feed, turn on any commercial. The style once criminalized now sells everything from phones to fast food. Meanwhile, the numbers kept shifting. Black violent crime dropped another 30% from 2001 to 2020. Graduation and college rates hit record highs. Black poverty reached its lowest point since tracking began. And yet the crisis image still circulates, describing a country that no longer exists. The story didn't stop when the numbers changed. Politics kept repeating it. Both sides found profit in the picture. One campaigns on saving us from it. The other campaigns on saving us through it. Both still sell the same fear. The irony? The culture branded as America's biggest threat represents only a minority of all black people in America. But fear made better television than recovery, so the myth stayed on replay. The so-called super predator generation didn't end civilization, it defined it. The fear that its influence would spread came true, just not the way anyone predicted. If the people once blamed for breaking it became the blueprint, then what really happened to the black family? Find a way to stick around, because Trullo's closing this series himself. This is Thinking Blind. See you soon. So yeah, if you watched the Conversation with Forrest series, this is that moment I was talking about, the one that was supposed to be your first time hearing me speak, until the spirit of truth shelved my plans. When my team and I started the Black Family Convo, all we wanted was the truth. The Black family really did fall apart, that's not a myth, but the story they told about why doesn't line up. They said thug life ruined the family, that we collapsed because of the image and the noise. But the numbers told a different story. Most of what broke us had already happened, decades earlier, through jobs lost, policies passed, and neighborhoods stripped clean before the first lyric ever hit the air. We were already in the fall. Thug life just grew up in the wreckage. And after sitting with all that, I started to see the pattern. Since the 70s, we've been shown the same cities and the same headlines like that's the mirror for all of us. We studied the same records and research that shape how this country measures progress and pain, and even there, I saw it. The bias. Most of those numbers come from the hardest corners, big cities, crowded blocks, and somehow that picture gets stretched to cover all of us. It's not a lie, it's just not the whole truth. There's so much life that never makes it into the data, families rebuilding, steady, unseen. If you follow the real curve, we've slowed the fall. The decline isn't what it used to be, it's stabilizing, for now. But while we argue about politics and pills, we're missing what's right in front of us. Our recovery. It's fragile, quiet, but it's there. Whether it grows or fades might come down to what we choose to believe about ourselves next. Because the truth's still here. It survived everything they threw at it. And maybe that's the point, maybe the conversation isn't about what we lost, but about what will be redeemed. Thanks for watching A Conversation with You. What really happened to the Black family? The conversation ends, for now, but the answer to that question is still ours to decide. This is Trullo. This is Thinking Blind. See you soon. Salah.